let's have it. I'd like you and me, Tommy McGuire's combo.
Hello, and welcome to the Stateside Madness podcast, the one and only podcast of the official Madness American fan service. I'm Laurie, along with my co-host Poly, here to bring you news, reviews, and deep dives into the nutty sound of the British pop band Madness.
Peace of mind. I am a man. I am what I am. I am a man.
All right. Well, hello, Stateside Madness, and welcome back to a very special two-part episode of the podcast. And we're going to be talking about the man himself, Suggs, today. And there's so much to talk about. That's why we thought we would dedicate 2 episodes to it. So I am Polly. And my partner here is Laurie. Say hello, Laurie.
Hello, Laurie.
So let's get right into it, Laurie.
Yeah. So, first of all, since this is an American podcast, if you're listening to this thinking this is going to be about Terrell Suggs, the football player, you are going to be disappointed. Graham Suggs McPherson, who is the lead singer of the band Madness. I wanted to start off, Polly, I was going back through, you remember I was saying how my first Madness CD was that Total Madness compilation. And I went back and I looked at the liner notes. I went back and looked at the liner notes, and I thought this was really cool. So the liner notes have an intro by Dickie Barrett, who's the lead singer of the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. And they were a huge ska punk band here in the 90s. And so he wrote, it was all about getting Suggs's autograph. I guess he and some friends heard that they were playing at Saturday Night Live in 1984. And so they hung out outside, where were they? Where's that? 30 Rock? Is that where they were shooting Saturday Night Live? They hung out outside and waited for the band. And when the band came out, they met the band. So Dickie Barrett wrote, "That night, we caught Madness's performance, exited the NBC building, stood out front on the sidewalk waiting for our heroes to emerge. When they finally did, we were speechless. Suggs broke the silence. Why don't you come along with us? The rest of the night, we rolled with Madness from club to club, bar to bar, talking about music, friendships, baseball, football, in parentheses, soccer, growing up in Boston, growing up in London. And then at one point when no one was looking, I slid a wrinkled cocktail napkin in front of my new friend Suggs, who pulled out a black magic marker and gave me his autograph." I thought that was a really cool story to begin with because, first of all, I think it shows Suggs is just a genuine, very approachable person. But also, I think it's very significant because a lot of Americans might not know Madness, but Madness have been so influential on a lot of the music that Americans have really come to like the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, or Less Than Jake, or, you know, any of these other really big ska punk bands. They would not be around without Suggs and without Madness. So I think that that's a very important thing to acknowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that Dickey really continues that tradition and that sort of ethos. Being from New England, the Bosstones are pretty well like our home team. And I've been able to meet Dickey on more than a couple occasions because he is that type of gracious, gracious guy. He does hang out after the performances. He is very willing to cycle through a whole crowd of people and give them autographs if they want, say hello, ask how they're doing. Just a genuinely good guy. And I still have a little Boston Celtics trinket that he wrote 33, Larry Bird's number, on the back of for me. So yeah, I think it a credit to both Suggs and Dickey to be the type of people that don't build a barrier between themselves and the fans.
Excellent. All right, so to get started, one thing of note, and I know that Donald, who is our Stateside Madness blog keeper, had written about how he was always referring to him as Suggs McPherson, and that British people kind of looked at him funny because over in Britain, he is just known as Suggs, one name, right? Like Cher. However, I think it's interesting that both his official website and his Instagram are under the name Suggs McPherson, not just Suggs. So I don't know. I think the verdict's still out on that. So he was born Graham McPherson, January 13th, 1961 in Hastings, Sussex. So his mother was a jazz singer named Edwina Gower. So he spent most of his childhood in Soho jazz clubs as his mother performed. She didn't have a sitter most nights. So he'd actually just kind of be sitting at the bar while his mother performed. So as a result of that, I'm under the impression that he really did not have a lot of friends his own age because he was moving around in these jazz club circles. The family did move around a lot from place to place. His father was named William Rutherford McPherson. According to Suggs's autobiography, he left when Suggs was 3 years old. It's kind of sad, really. Suggs has sometimes wondered what happened to his dad. Why hasn't he been in touch? If he was still alive, I imagine he would have contacted me. But in 2012, Suggs learned that his father had died back in 1975, and he learned it by reading his own Wikipedia entry. And I think that's really a sad, unfortunate way to have to learn of your father's demise like that. I think it's telling. Before he knew his father had died, he had said, "What I've heard hasn't been good. Heroin, injecting his eyeballs with paraffin, and being sectioned." So being sectioned is hospitalization, usually for mental illness. Usually it's involuntary. The word we would use over here is committed. You're committed to an institution. That injecting his eyeballs with paraffin, though, I don't get that. I don't get what I've made candles out of paraffin. What would that do for somebody? I don't understand.
I think when I saw that little bit, that really struck me as such a peculiar and terrifying thing. And I briefly went online looking today to see what was meant of that. And injecting intravenous drugs into the eyeball, I guess, is apparently a thing. But paraffin treatments were something that a bit of snake oil sort of, flim-flam, not real cure for anything sort of process that was done often. It boggles the mind that people would think that helped in any respect.
Yeah. So, and injecting into the eyeballs, it's just ew, ew, ew. So, I mean, obviously this man was very sick that he would resort to something like that. So hopefully he's at peace now. So the nickname Suggs, do you know where he got the nickname Suggs, Polly?
Yeah, so it was a jazz musician, Peter Suggs, And I guess the story goes that there was an encyclopedia of jazz musicians. Suggs, our Suggs, Graham McPherson, pulled it from that encyclopedia. Another thing I was boggled by, that there exists an encyclopedia of jazz musicians, but there you go.
Because, you know, the name Graham McPherson is a very ethnic sounding name. It's Scottish. You know, growing up in Britain, I guess he wanted something a little less ethnic sounding. So he just kind of hit on that name Suggs. I guess he just kind of randomly turned to a page, put his finger on it. Boop, that's the name. So after that, he insisted on being called Suggs, and he actually wouldn't answer in school when they called attendance unless they called him Suggs. If they called on Graham, he would not answer. And he started spray painting all around town, graffiti. Suggs is our leader, and Suggs is everywhere. And there was a humorous anecdote, because as you know, Polly, at that point, Kix and Chrissy Boy and Mr. B, right, the other members of Madness, they hadn't met yet, but they were tagging around town too. Supposedly, when they finally met Suggs, Tomo says to him, "Oh, so you're our leader, eh?" I don't know if that's true, but that's an amusing anecdote.
Yep. So early on in his life, Suggs did bounce around quite a bit, very transitory lifestyle. And at about age 8, he moved in with his Aunt Diana and 3 cousins, including Hector. Hector would then later go on to work for the band and is seen in the beginning of the Bed and Breakfast Man video. And in his mid-teens, Sugg worked as a delivery boy for a butcher, and I do believe a couple other menial jobs in there as well. I guess he viewed himself more as a bit of a football hooligan than a criminal. Always a big supporter of the Chelsea FC soccer team.
So it's interesting to me, growing up with this, you know, as you mentioned, a very kind of bohemian, transient lifestyle, but with all these musicians around him, right, and growing up in this kind of a musical atmosphere. And apparently he wasn't really thinking about a career in music, which is interesting because in retrospect, it seems inevitable, doesn't it? You know, growing up in all these jazz clubs, of course he's going to end up doing something musical. You mentioned Hector, his cousin, and Hector, I think, was probably the closest thing he had to a friendship of someone his own age. And so that was really for him a very formative relationship, a very positive relationship that continued throughout his years of Madness. As you mentioned, Hector had worked for the band for a while. All right, so, you know, again, he was really just kind of hanging out, you know, doing the things that teenagers do. He was friends with a guy named John Hassler. And John Hassler had these friends that were in a band called the North London Invaders, and Suggs met the rest of the band through this friend. The Invaders had a singer named Dickren Tulane who had just left the band, so they were looking for a new singer. Suggs says he was invited to audition for the band after they heard him singing at the top of his voice on the way home from the cinema. So I don't know if it was really good or if it was just something in his personality, but they invited him to audition to take Dickren's place. The story goes, the song he sang at the audition was "See You Later, Alligator" by Bill Haley and the Comets. Now, I don't think any recordings exist of this audition, but they recreated this scene for the movie Madness, Take It or Leave It. And I just want to play a little snippet of this. This is Suggs singing "See You Later, Alligator" with Madness.
Well, I saw my baby walking with another man today. Well, I saw my baby walking with another man today. When I asked him what's the matter, this is what I heard him say. See you later, alligator, in a wild crocodile. We'll see you later, alligator, in a wild crocodile. Okay, cheer him away now. Don't you know your grandma's not
So Suggs is with the band for what might be arguably like a brief period of time. He was fired from the band for missing too many rehearsals, presumably to go watch Chelsea FC. But then at some point, he recognized that Mike Barson had put an ad in Melody Maker, a semi-professional North London band, seek professionally minded singer. Suggs recognized the phone number, gave a call up, and according to legend, had a bit of a put-on, made-up voice, and inquired what had happened to the previous singer. Barson tells him that he was fired for being unprofessional, and then apparently Suggs lets loose and has at Mike, and up one side, down the other, screaming profanities. But somehow still ingratiated himself, made his way back into the band. At that point, he took over for John Hasler. Suggs did a little bit in the way of playing drums, but was eventually fired as the drummer too. John Hasler had gone away temporarily, taken a trip to France. And Suggs was the only person that they knew who might know the songs, know the guys in the band. And apparently Chrissy Boy called him up again and said, hey, want to come back? We need a little bit of help. And I believe his tenure was pretty well uninterrupted from that point. And that's him back in the band.
So while Suggs was with Madness, he met the singer of another band called Deaf School. He was introduced through his producer, Clive Langer. Deaf School they had a few hits over in Britain, really unknown here in the States. But one of the singers of the band, she had the stage name Betty Bright. Her real name was Ann Martin. And they fell in love. And they got married in 1981. Chaz Smash was the best man. They've been together ever since. It's really kind of a very rare, I think, in showbiz, one of those rare enduring marriages. I want to play just a little snippet of a song that Betty Bright, aka Ann Martin, is singing on. This is Deaf School. This is called Taxi.
And we were having such a good time. Nights like these, crazy beat to lonely hearts, meet and never take cater to. We forgot about tomorrow.
Slow down, driver. It doesn't matter anyhow.
Driving through the empty streets, counting on a chance to be rich.
All right, so we have something. We have something new this week. There's a new segment that Poly is going to be doing semi-regularly. Poly, you want to talk about what this new segment is going to be?
Sure. So Laurie, as you might know, is a college professor, very ready to do research, very detail orientated, just altogether on it, and does an awful lot of our research. So myself, on the other hand, I'm just kind of a workaday schlub, and boy, doing homework is not my thing. And so when we got talking about Suggs, I was panicked, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And then I realized that it's 2020, and nobody can say that the things you say aren't true if you just commit to it. So I thought, there's all these people out there with their alternative facts. And I said, they can't have all the fun. I'm going to be doing some of it too. All I need is a belief in what I'm saying and a bunch of gullible people to go along with it. And that's where our fans come in. So we've put together a sort of list of facts about Suggs you might not have been aware of. And we're going to call this segment, Don't Quote Me on That.
All eggs, bacon, beans, and fries. Don't quote me on that. Please don't quote me.
All right, and so here are some alternative facts about Suggs. First one, Suggs carved the Easter Island statues based on his assumption of what Betters, Tomo, and Chrissy Boy would look like in 2020. Suggs has the strength of 10 men who each have 1/10 the strength of a normal man. Suggs has only cried once when Woody explained the tooth fairy doesn't pay for teeth procured during bar fights. Suggs continues to believe that Spinal Tap is a real documentary. Suggs's only failure was when he tried to start a charity that granted wishes to children with mild colds. Suggs doesn't have to question whether Sasquatch is real or not. That's not a bearskin rug in his den. Side effects of Suggs may include increased heart rate, restlessness, and a compulsive desire to smack the shit out of UB40.
All eggs, bacon, beans, and fries. Please don't quote me. I never said that. That's not what I meant. Well, I suppose you could take it that way, but that's not what I meant to say. Will you give me another chance? Please, don't quote me on that. I'd like to say thank you to Peter Tom.
Yeah. So we're going to split this up, as Polly mentioned, we're going to split this up into 2 episodes. So this episode, we're going to focus mostly on Suggs's contribution to Madness as both a singer and a songwriter. And then in the next episode, we're going to talk about all the other stuff that Suggs has done. He's not too well known here in the States, but over in Britain, he's known for being an actor, a television host, a DJ, a bunch of other stuff. So we're going to focus today specifically on his work with Madness. So as you mentioned, Polly, he was pretty much a fixture of the band ever since. The lead singer contributed a lot to the songwriting. So as we've done in previous episodes with other band members, Polly and I have picked our top 5 songs that Suggs has contributed to as a writer or a co-writer. And we're limiting this specifically to Madness for this episode. Now, this one was tricky, Polly, because you sent me your list, and just about everything you had on your list was on my list. So I reworked my list a little bit just so we could really showcase a wider variety of songs. So my number 5 pick for a song that was co-written by Suggs is Yesterday's Men. Let's give a listen. So I like that one. It's bittersweet. You know, we talked about it a little bit in our previous episode, and we talked about the album Mad Not Mad. But there's an underlying current of hope, right? It has to get better in the long run. It must get better in the long run. I think, Polly, you already kind of talked about that song too in the last episode. You probably don't have anything you want to add here, do you?
Well, just a little bit. So when we get to my next pick, I picked it because of my fondness for songwriting that is lyrically, that sort of slice of life, depiction of, what it's like living in London, growing up in London and things like that. And I've said that on quite a few podcasts. I really like that type of storytelling in songs. And I think the flip side of that is that you can't be that type of songwriter without having a real strong sentimentality to you. And I think, Yesterday's Man is definitely in that vibe. Definitely representative of that type of sentimentality in songwriting.
Well, Polly, what was your number 5 pick for a Suggs co-written song?
Okay, so number 5 is one of those slice of life songs I like so much. It is Shut Up, and another song about the boys in the band behaving badly. Let's take a listen.
I wasn't there. Don't blame me, it just isn't fair. You listen to their side, now listen to mine. Come think of a story, sure you'll find me some time. Now pass the blame and don't blame me. Just close your eyes and count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Then I'll be gone and you'll forget broken window TV set. It wasn't me either, I'm just his mate.
So, Laurie, tell me a little bit about what you think of Shut Up.
Oh, I love it, especially the piano. I think the piano is great. But it's the lyrics are brilliant. I absolutely love the song. As a matter of fact, making a plate of spaghetti for my husband, and I'm like, pasta blame and don't blame me. All right, should we move on?
Yeah, please. Yeah, I'm the dad here. I should lay claim to all the dad jokes.
All right. Well, Polly, you and I have the same number 4. Do you want to introduce our number 4?
Sure. Like Laurie said, there was an awful lot of crossover in what our picks were. She was gracious enough to back out and come up with some on her own, but we could not deny our number 4 pick. We both wanted it. And so number 4 is Waiting for the Ghost Train. And let's take a listen.
Chested man, a pocket full of posies with a hat brim full of sand. Ooh, waiting for the train that never comes. A dog chasing the tumbleweeds across the sandy floor. A drift along the platform through the ticket office store. Ooh, waiting for the train that never comes. Waiting for the train that never comes. But don't tell me there's nothing coming. You don't fool me. I hear the ghost train rumbling along the track, them free. And I hear that it's black and white.
All right. So, Laurie, I'll start in with a couple of comments on Ghost Train.
All right.
I remember as a child riding in the back seat of the car, and my parents' selection for radio stations was an oldies station. And even at that time, the 70s to the 60s, I don't know why they called it oldies, but they did. And a song on there that was quite prevalent was Green Door. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but rhythmically and melodically, it sounds a great deal like Ghost Train, at least parts of it. And it has a bit of that rolling boogie woogie piano that's not as prevalent in Ghost Train, but melodically, I just think there's a lot of similarity there. Lyrically, of course, the song is a great deal more heady. It's about apartheid, as we mentioned recently in another podcast, but nonetheless, just a fantastic song, undeniably awesome song. One of my favorite Madness songs. What are your thoughts, Laurie?
I don't think I can follow that up with anything quite so profound. I just think it's catchy. Now, the first time I heard this song was in 2012. I was in my doctoral program. I had just finished my comp exams, which is a big step before you can do your doctoral dissertation and get your doctorate. You have to pass these comp exams, and it's like a week-long exam, and they advise you to take the week off of work, which I didn't do. And I had just passed my comp exams, and so to celebrate, I bought the Divine Madness CD DVD set. And that is the first time I had ever heard this song. So I associate that in my mind with this milestone of my finishing my exams. So not as intellectual as your analysis, I'm afraid. All right.
Oh, I don't hear I don't hear me and the word intellectual wind up in the same sentence very often. So Laurie, moving on, what's your number 3 pick?
Oh, I had to pick The Communicator. Just such a fun song, I mean, it's impossible to not get up and dance with that kind of a beat. Plus, we've got both Suggs and Chas Smash sharing lyrical duties here, which I always like, that kind of back and forth. It's just a very uplifting song. I don't know.
That it is, and I'm a big fan of just repeating a bunch of nonsense syllables as part of a chorus and just kind of going at it. So I definitely love the song. So speaking of loving songs, my number 3 is, I think, one of the more underrated Madness songs. I just don't know why it wasn't a lot more prominent when people are talking about great Madness songs. So number 3 for me is Never Ask Twice.
Stickers from far and wide and stuffed it full of suits and matching ties.
travelled on the seas and I've travelled on the land, and there's not a single person I can't understand. I've forgotten the languages and waved my cash. I've enjoyed every minute of it with a splash. I wear a Panama on my Brooklyn hair. I think I carry it with a certain flair. When travelling abroad I know the score, with a voice of authority from the first. Well, I was travelling through the Congo on a magic Persian rug, staving off disease with hallucinogenic drugs, with a mind-bending route from a local native source. Made my mind and my body have a premature divorce.
So, Laurie, tell me about your views on Never Asked Twice.
I was really surprised when I saw this in your top 5. I don't know, this song is barely even on my radar, maybe because it was, like a bonus track. They deserve some credit for including the words hallucinogenic drugs in the song. You don't encounter that too often in song lyrics. It's different. Why did you choose it?
I just think it's fantastic. I love the perspective of a world traveler, adventure type thing. For the most part, you could imagine Indiana Jones singing it, and I think it's it's a real bouncy song as well. I don't know. It's always been one of my favorites, and it's a lesser known Madness song. It was never released in any format in the United States, but it does appear on The Business, and it was released. A couple of countries had it on the Keep Moving. I think Australia did. But nonetheless, fantastic Madness song, one of my favorites.
All right, well, let's move on to our number 2. So my number 2 selection, which is co-written by Suggs, is Wings of a Dove.
Take time for your pleasure and laugh with love. Take the hand of another and sing for the wings of a dove. Whoa, whoa, for the wings of a dove. Whoa, whoa, for the wings of a dove. Look up at the rooftops when you're walking round. Don't think for a moment of looking down. Whoa, whoa, yeah.
All right, so what do you think of that one, Polly?
It's undeniably fun song. It does have heavy on instrumentation that doesn't usually exist in the band, as does the choral singers as well. Steel drum, Caribbean sound. There's just not a lot to not like there.
Yeah.
I mean, it stands out as a very different type of Madness song, but somehow still fits.
Yeah, and again, like my previous selection, I think that the lyrics are very uplifting. Look up at the rooftops when you're walking around. Don't think for a moment of looking down. It's always like, chin up and just experience what life has to offer. And just, again, a really fun song for me. So your number 2, Polly, would have been my number 2. So do you want to introduce your number 2?
Okay. A song that makes its way into very nearly every episode we have. It is Night Boat to Cairo. All right, so there we go. Nightboat to Cairo. We talk about it an awful lot, but it's right up there. It's pretty well my second favorite Madness song, and a crowd favorite, a fan favorite. It's Hallmark Madness. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
What do you think, Laurie?
I think that there's nothing more that I can say about this that we haven't already said in the previous 4 or 5 episodes that we've played it. So it still remains an absolute classic Madness song. And I'm happy that they still play it in their live shows. I think it would be very, very disappointing to see Madness live and not hear this song. Okay, so number 1. Were you surprised by my number 1 choice, Polly? I know I was surprised by your number 3.
I was very, very surprised by it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, not surprised that you picked it.
Okay.
But it's not a Madness song that I pops into my head when I think of great Madness songs. But I do like it.
Okay. So yeah, Polly, you
We
and
haven't
I
even said what it is. What
we
is it?
We haven't. I was gonna say, so Polly, you and I really kind of we have a little bit of a deviation in the kind of music that we like, right? And I kind of feel like you really like the old school, very heavy ska. I like a lot more of their more modern stuff. So my number 1 song that I chose was That Close.
Ready for love. We were so close. It was scary. We were that close. I couldn't tell you. Ready for love. We were that close to getting it right, crashing and burning. Remember them summer days and we took whatever came our way, a getaway. Hey, but not too far. We'll take a spin round in your rusty old car. 'Cause no one else could know.
That's on the album The Liberty of Norton Folgate. There's a really interesting story behind that song, but I would like to save it for when we talk about The Liberty of Norton Folgate. I don't want to tell all the cool stories now and then have nothing to say when we talk about Norton Folgate. But I really enjoy that song. And that song, for me, when I listen to it, I mean, it's not just, remember them sunny days. I mean, I listen to that and I really feel like the end of summer, that time of year where the days are starting to get shorter again and the weather's starting to get a little bit cooler. And this song, whenever I listen to it, it really takes me back to that time of year.
So I won't add anything in for That Close. Suffice to say that maybe why I don't, it doesn't stand out to me as a prominent Madness song is that when I listen to Folgate, I almost always listen to it as one unit. The album is so strong that I'll listen to it start to finish. It's one thing to me altogether.
No, you know what? I think that is actually, that's a very fair statement. And really, you're absolutely right. I mean, The Liberty of Norton Folgate being this concept album, it seems a little strange to pick one little piece out of it here or there. It seems maybe a little bit out of place. I agree with you on that. I did choose it. Another reason I chose it is because it is the title of Suggs's autobiography, which is That Close. So he chose to name his autobiography after this song. So that's another reason why I chose it as my number one. Polly, what's your number one?
All right. Well, so no coincidence here. And not only is it my number one, it's the best Madness song ever. It's Baggy Trousers.
Naughty boys in nasty schools, headmasters breaking all the rules, having fun and playing pool, smashing up the woodwork tools. All the teachers in the pub, passing round a ready rub, trying not to think of when the lunchtime bell will ring again. Oh, what fun we had, but did it really turn out bad? All I learnt at school was how to spend not break the rules. Oh, what fun we had, but at the time it seemed so bad, trying different ways to make a difference too. The headmasters had enough today. All the kids have gone away, gone to fight with next to school. Every term that is the rule. Sits alone and bends his cane. Same old backside.
And so there we go with Baggy Trousers. And again, a song we've mentioned a bunch of times already on the podcast, but just unbelievable song. It really hits home being at a Madness show and seeing the crowd go absolutely nuts for that song. Great to listen to at home too. Just jumpy, really moves along. And like I said, it's that portrait of a life of a kid growing up in the UK. It's fantastic stuff.
Good choice. Very good choice. You know, the band had put out a call back in like August, right? Beginning of the school year. They were trying to get fans to submit a video for a Baggy Trousers lip sync challenge. I wonder whatever came of that. I actually submitted something. I dressed up in my full doctoral robe and the little 6-quarter cap and everything. And I submitted something, but I think for whatever reason, they just didn't do it, which is a shame. I was kind of hoping to see what they would come up with for that, but oh well. Good choice. Good choice. So that kind of leads us up to about 86 or so, which was the end of Madness. Now, not all the songs that we chose in our top 5 were pre-86. Some were later. Madness split up in 86, as we mentioned in our previous episode. But it wasn't the end of the band, as we're going to see moving forward. And there was no shortage of other projects for Suggs to work on in the interim. So in our next episode, we're going to start talking about that and some of the other collaborations and the other projects that Suggs worked on, including some solo albums that were not released here in the United States.
All right. And before we go, we wanted to congratulate Steve Kozak, if I'm pronouncing that right. So Steve entered in our contest celebrating our 1000th download, and Steve has won a copy of Absolutely on 180-gram vinyl. So Steve will be reaching out to you and sending Absolutely to you very shortly.
Congratulations, Steve. That's awesome. That winds up the first of 2 episodes about our man Suggs. Our next episode will be January, 10th? That sounds about right.
All right. And as always, thanks for listening. And thank you, Laurie, for all the wonderful research. We're going to close things out with a little listen to Suggs' rendition of Sleigh Ride.
It's appropriate.
So thanks again. That's all for me. Yeah.
And goodbye from me. Thank you. And happy holidays. Happy New Year. We'll see you guys in 2021.
Happy holidays, Stateside Madness. Go get a beer.
weather for a sleigh ride together with you. Outside the snow is falling and friends are calling you. Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you. Our cheeks are nice and rosy and comfy and cozy are we. We're snuggled up together like birds of a feather would be. Let's take that road before us and sing a chorus or two. Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you.
Hi. It's Suggs here. What? Wishing you all a very Merry Christmas. Don't forget this song's for Christmas, not just for life.
Our cheeks are nice and rosy and comfy and cozy are we. We're snuggled up together like birds of a feather would be. Let's take that road before us and sing a chorus or two. Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you.